Well, hello, everybody. I hope you're all doing well. Unfortunately, this week, I'm not in the field, obviously. I'm at home processing images. My apologies. I just ran out of time. I was doing a bunch of other projects and just didn't have time to get out this week. So my apologies for that. But hopefully you'll get something out of this processing video. Now, most of you, if you follow my channel on a regular basis, you will recognize this image from a video that I took a couple of weeks ago. And I did have a couple of technical issues that I wanted to share with you and how I kind of resolved them. Now, most of the time when I take an image like this, I take multiple images at different shutter speeds, primarily because I want to have a specific shutter speed for, say, a waterfall in this case. But obviously, if the shutter speed is too slow, then if you have any movement in foliage surrounding that waterfall, then it's all going to be quite blurry. So as an example, this image here was 5 seconds. And the reason why I took it at 5 seconds is I really wanted to get this little swirl in here of the bubbles. But the trade-off is that if we zoom in onto the leaves here, pretty much all of the foliage surrounding this area is blurry because obviously it's 5 seconds. Now, usually I'll take a faster shutter speed, and I think I even indicated that in the video. I was going to take some images at a higher ISO to get that shutter speed up so that I could stop the motion in these leaves. But for whatever reason, I didn't really do it. But luckily, I managed to find one image that was pretty close to this composition, and I was able to salvage this image. So I took this photograph. This is with a polarizer to saturate those colors and get rid of some of the sheen in the leaves. And then I took some horizontals, and then I went back to verticals. But as you can see, this photograph is quite a bit different than the one I just showed you. First of all, there's no polarizer on this, probably because I was just trying to get that shutter speed up. You can see that the color temperature is slightly different. This is slightly cooler. This was at ISO 3200, f16, and at 1/10 of a second. And if I zoom in on the leaves here, you can see that everything is nice and sharp. And that's the great thing about this camera, the GFX 100, is that I really can get away with pretty much any ISO. There's hardly any noise whatsoever. So I want to combine this photograph here with this one. And we can do it one of two ways. We could either have this as our base photograph and then paint in the waterfall and sections, or we can have this as our base photograph, which I actually prefer, and just paint in the areas where the leaves are out. Now, obviously, these are slightly different compositions, so we'll have to see if it lines up okay, which I know it does because I've already processed this image. The first thing, though, is ideally you want to try and match the colors as much as you can. I'm not too worried because I'm just painting the leaves in. But in this case, all I'm just going to do is just warm this up slightly. So I'll just give it a little bit more yellow. Just warm it up slightly. And if we want, I guess we can even compare them like so. I mean, that looks pretty close. It doesn't have to be exact. All right, so I'm just going to grab both of those images and right-click on them, edit in, and open as layers in Photoshop. Right, I've opened up the two layers in Photoshop, and as you can see, this is the image with the blurry leaves. And the bottom layer is the sharper of the two images, but slightly different composition. Now, when I originally took these photographs, I thought that I'd taken them at different focal lengths, but I hadn't, which was a lucky thing for me. They're just different compositions. I think what I'm going to do here, this is the image that I'm just going to replace the leaves with. So I'm going to take the bottom layer and put it at the top. And then what I'm going to do is, first of all, select both layers, go over to Edit, and hit Edit Auto Align Layers. And we'll just do it automatically. And then Photoshop will hopefully do its magic. This might take a little time because the files are quite large. And as you can see, the images have shifted for obvious reasons because they're different compositions. But if we go into this section here, that's the top layer, and this is the bottom layer. And as you can see, they've lined up pretty darn good. So the first thing I want to do is put a mask on that top layer, and preferably a black mask. So on a Mac, it's Option, push down the Option key, and down here you'll see the mask icon. You just click on that. And of course now we can see the bottom layer. So remember, black conceals, white reveals. So if we want to reveal that top layer, we have to paint in some white. So we have white paint already. B for brush. Make sure the opacity and flow are at 100%. And for this one, I'm going to feather a little bit. 26% is fine. Make sure that you're clicked onto the black mask. And then I'm just going to paint in those areas where I want the leaves to be sharp. And as you can see, Photoshop has done a pretty good job of lining up the areas that you want aligned up. If they weren't lined up, what you notice is some ghosting, and you might get a little bit in some of the branches. So you have to be careful about that, because leaves have obviously moved around a lot, but the branches might not have moved that much, but they might have moved a little bit. So you'll get some weird ghosting happening in there. And we'll just reduce the brush here. So I'm just going to go over this whole image here and just paint in the sections that that I want sharp. It's a really neat technique. I use it a lot, especially with waterfalls, because my shutter speed for the flow of water that I want is often different to what's happening with the foliage around, and it's generally slower. So this is a great way of maintaining the sharpness in the areas that you want sharp. Now, of course, another way that I could have done this, I could have had the sharp layer on the bottom and just painted in the waterfall. I could have done that as well, because in all honesty, the difference in ISO with the medium format camera, and I've said this a number of times, it's kind of a you're not going to notice a huge difference. Down here you can see that the leaves have moved a lot, but at the same time the ferns here haven't moved that much. So, and in here, and actually I prefer the because the top layer wasn't actually that blurry. Oh, sorry, the bottom layer. So if you paint over it and you don't like it, then just push X and that'll change the paint color, and you can just go back to how it was in the beginning there. So X. And yeah, so you just keep painting it, and that's pretty much it. It's not a hard technique to do or learn. I highly recommend it to those of you that want to do a little bit of time blending, a little bit up here, and so on. I'm not going to bore you with the whole thing. I think you get the idea. So we'll just zoom out here. And of course the rocks and everything, they won't be blurry because they're not moving. So there we go. And then after this, I would crop this. I think I used aspect ratio 4:5. Sorry, my computer's, whoops, 4:13, 4:5. And I think I lowered this a little bit. Something like that. And then I would just dodge and burn the areas that I want to enhance or darken. So as an example, I really love this section in here and around here, this grotto. So to my mind, what I would probably end up doing is dodging a little bit here, making this area brighter, and around here, and have the water as bright as possible. Have a brighter area in here, and then these rocks I would darken a little bit. Ideally, I want to draw the viewer's attention to this section here, because this is the bit that I really love. I would probably brighten up this section here too, kind of give you the illusion that light is flooding in from that area at the back there. So that's kind of the way that I think when I look into these images and how I want to process them. You have to remember also that it's about contrast. So if you want to create depth, it's nice to have a bit of contrast and have lights against darks. So here's a great example. Brighten up this section here as far as you want to go, but then create some nice dark shadows here. You've got some nice dark shadows here. So if you have that contrast, it gives the illusion that there's more depth to the photograph. Right, I hope that was helpful. As I said, this is just a short video to kind of show you this technique. I have done it before, but I like to go over the same technique with different images. If you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the comments down below. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, please be sure to give me a thumbs up. All right, folks, thanks ever so much for watching. Till next week. Bye-bye.